Indian National Constitution Day. Okay, start, Shaheen.
Dear participants, before we move forward, please keep your audio turned off for the smooth conduction of the webinar. Once again, dear participants, before we move forward, please keep your audio turned off for the smooth conduction of the webinar. Good evening to everyone and warm welcome to all. I am Shaheen, a student of 2nd BA study. Today we are delighted and honored to conduct the webinar on Indian Constitution, Evolution and its Relevance in Contemporary India, organized by Department of Political Science, Little Flower College, Guruvayoor, in connection with Constitution Day, also known as National Law Day, on 26 November. This day has a unique historical significance, as it was on this day in 1949 that the Constitution was adopted and thereafter came into force, marking the beginning of India as a republic. I extend a very warm welcome to everybody present here. I would request Sister Timi Thomas, Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, to deliver welcome note.
Good evening, everyone. I am very happy to welcome you all to this national webinar conducted in connection with 72nd National Constitution Day celebration. Before entering to the session, let us invoke the blessings of the Almighty God through a silent prayer. As we know, today is a very important day for the nation. On 26 November 1949, we honored the adaptation of the Constitution of India. The Constitution Assembly was formed and consisted of elected representatives from various fields. There was a 2-month period between the adaptation and the enforcement of the Constitution. Constitution Day aims to celebrate the significance of the Indian Constitution. So, today is the best day to make a discourse on Indian Constitution, evolution and its relevance in contemporary India. Today, we have with us Dr. Christopher Chandran, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Political Science, Madras Christian College, Chennai, Tamil Nadu, as a resource person for this session. He is a very knowledgeable person, credited with number of publications, including books and articles related to political science. He was the chief resource person of several national and international seminars and conferences. He also served as a member of Board of Studies in many colleges and universities across the country. He was subject expert of the University of Madras and advisor of Staff Selection Commission in Government of India. Sir, we are extremely proud at this moment. We cordially welcome you to the session on behalf of our college, our principal, staff, and students. We welcome you, sir. Our principal, Reverend Dr.Sr. Valsa, the strong pillar of our institution. Sister, we are extremely thankful to you for your strong support and encouragement. A warm welcome to dear sister. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all the colleagues and students to this national webinar. Hope the session would be enlightening and fruitful to all. Once again, welcome to one and all. Thank you. Now I cordially invite our principal, Reverend Dr.Sr. Valsa, for the inauguration speech.
A pleasant good evening to one and all. Greetings of Constitution Day to all. Today, we are observing the Constitution Day. Early morning, we heard a message on Constitution and the preamble of the Constitution. Constitution Day is celebrated in India on 26th November every year to commemorate the adoption of the Constitution of India. The Constitution Day is also known as Citizenship Day. The Constituent Assembly adopted the Constitution of India on 26 November 1949 and it came into force on 26 January 1950, which is celebrated in the country as Republic Day. First of all, I took this opportunity to congratulate Sister Kriba Maria, Faculty of Political Science, for the initiative to conduct this webinar. Today's resource person, Dr.S.D.Christopher Chandran, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Political Science, Madras Christian College, Chennai, is the apt person to communicate a right perspective on Constitution Day. All students should know our fundamental rights and fundamental duties. I wish a grand success to this webinar. I am extremely happy to inaugurate this webinar. Now, may this webinar lead to a great insight for all the students. I declare the national webinar is inaugurated. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Without further delay, I am going to introduce our today's resource person, Dr.S.D.Christopher Chandran, Associate Professor and Head Department of Political Science, Madras Christian College, Chennai. He presented a number of papers on education in Indian universities and foreign universities. And also, he is the advisor of Staff Selection Commission. Sir, we are eagerly waiting to hear from you. I kindly request you to begin the session.
Good evening to one and all. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Jishma, Anthony, Sister, Principal, and coordinator of this program, Sister Timi Thomas, for giving me this opportunity to speak to you on this Constitution Day. Congrats to each one of you. Actually, we should be very happy that we have a constitution. Okay. I'm just giving you a small introduction, what Ambedkar, because all of us know that if we talk about Indian constitution, we have to link it to Ambedkar. So it's most of you have read it already. What Ambedkar already said, it's a vehicle of life, and its spirit is always the spirit of age. Okay, this is the basis on which I'm going to speak today to you. And as you all know, the title very clearly says evolution. So I'm going to concentrate about 5 to 7 minutes on evolution, how the Constitution came into existence. And later I will speak to you about the what are the things that have happened and how relevant it is in the contemporary India. And later, another 7 or 8 minutes, we will try to conclude. Okay? And then I can move into questions. Very small introduction that most of you would have known. The process actually started somewhere in the year 1934, that we need a constitution. And when we talk about constitution, actually, we should all be happy that the constitution always means that we are having a civilized life. Okay, we have moved a long way from monarchy, where the thought and thinking of a king became the law, and it was subject to the mood and fancies of the king. But only when law came, constitution came, all of us were treated equal. Okay, it is a sign of civilization. It is a sign that we are all treated equal. All of us are subject to the same law. Our rights are same. Our freedoms are same. Our punishments will be the same. That is the sign of when we talk about constitution. So as early as 1934, we started demanding a constitution for India by M.N. Roy, and then it became the official demand of the Indian National Congress that led the National Freedom Movement. Rajagopalachari also raised it to be that the members of the Constituent Assembly should be based on adult franchise, cabinet mission plan, allowed for us to conduct an election, and then we all know the drafting committee chairman was Ambedkar. With a small introduction. So I'm going to, because the topic talks about evolution, I wanted you to know the historical background behind the whole thing. India is not what you and I have. In 1946, 47, it was very, very, very different. There were certain territories only were under the direct British Empire. They were called as provinces. Madras province or Bombay province or Bengal province, Calcutta, so on. But there were more than 550 kingdoms and monarchs and kings in India. They had their own properties. Apart from these, but who had to an extent accepted the supremacy of the British Queen. But apart from these, there were other colonies controlled by France and Portugal too. So this is the background on which the Constituent Assembly is planning to write a constitution. Some of the province or the people have been used to the British rule. Some of them were more than 550 kings ruled, and they were under some kind of a monarchy. And these are the kind of people that we are all bringing together. And as you all know, most of us will say the picture you have in front of you is Nehru, the center person is Vallabhbhai Patel, on the other side is V.P. Menon. We all call Vallabhbhai Patel as the Iron Man of India, and you should know this is the reason why we have called Vallabhbhai Patel the Iron Man of India. It is not very easy for a king to surrender his property and say, I will become an ordinary citizen in India. Okay, 550 kings were forced or made to surrender by the negotiations of Vallabhbhai Patel. If you were the king and queen, how would you surrender your property and suddenly become an ordinary citizen of another country? And that was the magical power that Vallabhbhai Patel had. And with these kind of different kinds of people that Ambedkar and Rajendra Prasad and Jawaharlal Nehru are planning to write. And that is the background that you have to understand. From the social side, if you see, we have more than 2,000 languages and scripts that are in India. We have umpteen number of religions in India, different kinds of culture, even within a state. Districts have different cultures. We have a very strict, a very strong caste hierarchy. And you are trying to, we might be boasting of unity in terms of diversity, but the problem is, how do you bring all these Am I audible now? And my screen is visible?
Okay, okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, there was a power failure. I'm sorry. Chennai is raining. Okay. Okay. The economic side, I wanted to give you a different kind of a picture in the sense that we have been too good and kind. Indians have a large heart. We allowed people like Dutch, Portuguese, French, Turks, Mongols, and only finally the Britishers came. In fact, we say Mohammed bin Ghazni came 17 times, and every time he came, he plundered Indian wealth and went off. So at the time that India got independence, or the time that India sat to write the Indian constitution, because every law, suppose you are talking of right to work, then it would mean that in case people do not get jobs or work, they will have to be provided financially by the government of India. You understand? So every law, every right has certain, to an extent, economic implication. And now that we have allowed so many people to come, India was literally, we were supposed to be, before 1600, we were supposed to be top 3 countries in the world economically, and suddenly we have become, we were calling ourselves as underdeveloped, and now we are seen to be with a pseudo name called developing nation. Okay, we have been allowed. So economically, we were not very, very good. In fact, we have been bad, and we have to write a constitution wherein it will also provide welfare for the people. Ideological, yes, we were having capitalism, communism, socialism, Marxism. We were into a lot of ideology in terms of our own customs and traditions, a lot of belief systems. And this is the, you should have the understanding when the Constituent Assembly members, each one of them have their own ideological difference. Okay, if you talk about Nehru, Nehru was a capitalist by birth, but after his visit to Russia, preferred socialism. Okay, we had other freedom fighters who were Marxist in nature. There were people who were against certain Hindu belief systems. Okay, these are the different people from different ideological background are sitting together to write a constitution for a people who are diverse in nature. And that is how our thing evolved. It's a product of huge deliberation with different kinds of people from different backgrounds. 3 years of input, of discussions, intellectual discussions. Approximately, if you go into the Constitution Assembly debates, you will find 36 lakh words were spoken before we wrote the Constitution. And especially 14% of the discussion among the 36 lakh words that were spoken concentrated on the fundamental rights for you and me. The importance, when we are talking of 395 articles in the Indian Constitution, only about 14 to 32 talks about fundamental rights. But for these few articles, 14% of the deliberations was on for protecting the individual freedom for you and me. 4% of the discussion were on the future of India. How would the founding fathers will have the vision or will direct the future state policies? In fact, very sad, but the truth is that the women members spoke only in the whole thing, only about 2%. Okay, this is how I'm only giving you the different aspects of how the Constitution evolved. Okay, this is only for you to simply understand only about 6 people spoke for more than 1 lakh words. Okay, not much. Others, including Nehru, I think approximately around 79,000 words only. The other thing is about the women members. Okay, on the right side, I've given you details of who spoke for what. Okay, we expect women to speak for women only, but some of them spoke for fundamental rights, some of them spoke for the justice for women, some of them spoke for the strengthening of judiciary, because without judiciary, judicial support, constitution will become useless, because judiciary becomes the guardian of the constitution. Okay, every time when our rights are violated, we go to the Supreme Court for a restoration. And Durgabai spoke for the formation of judiciary, which will only guarantee the constitution for us. Without being violated, the law of the land would prevail, and we will still be able to get justice from judiciary. Okay, and this is again, any book will give you these things, that these are the people who chaired. So their influence, the philosophical, their ideological influence will be there in each committee members, because ultimately the human nature was each one is from a different background. Okay, so now we move on. That is about, so this I'm giving you as a historical background. All these things you should have in mind when we sit and write the constitution, when the founding fathers sat. And so we should be able to appreciate that they were able to do a great amount of justice in creating this wonderful law of the land for India, in spite of difference in terms of language, culture, religion, all these things, the caste system, the family background, the monarchical system, all these things. So how relevant is our constitution for the, that's what we will do today. So I am doing it in about 5 parts, but I shall do it very, very simple, because I understand from Sister Timi that you are students from different backgrounds. So I don't want to, if it is pure political science, we can take it to a different, but I thought you should all be able to understand and go on. So we will try to understand how relevant is our constitution in contemporary India, based on the vision which we see, vision of the founding fathers in the preamble. If the vision still continues, then we say the constitution is relevant. The founding fathers had a vision for India, and that is what we see in the preamble. So we'll see that. The second aspect is the fundamental rights. How much of our fundamental rights are being, or we are able to enjoy the fundamental rights, and what has happened to the fundamental rights. The third aspect is the Constitution created a lot of organs, constitutional bodies, statutory bodies that would actually run the government. Okay, we'll have to find how much of these bodies are still able to function within the scope of Constitution. Third one is the Directive Principles, as you all know, the future directives, and how much of these directives which were given to us in 1950 or 1949 when we adopted it are implemented, which means the vision of the founding fathers have been implemented to an extent. And then how do the state governments operate within the, that will be a very small portion I just thought, because we are all from a regional thing, that it's always better. Is it only the central government that operates through the constitution? But it's always the state governments too, because for us, more than the central government, every day we are into with the state governments. So how much the state governments, because constitution always provides for 3 subjects, the central list, the state list, and the concurrent list. So state governments do operate based on the constitutional provision. They make laws for us. And they also make laws from the concurrent list. And finally, we'll conclude and then go for the questions. And I might give a little bit of suggestions too. Okay. First is the preamble. Is India sovereign? Politically, socially, there is no threat for us now. No more invasions, no more this thing. In fact, people like from Tamil Nadu wanted a Dravidistan go out of India, Khalistan, and all these have been contained through amendments, and that we are very, very sovereign. But economically, yes, there is always, because we are still a developing nation. For example, if you want to say the most popular thing for a government employee was pension. The pension was stopped by World Bank because, like you and me, when we went to a bank for a loan for a house, a car, or a bike, they will see how much is our salary, how much we can repay, what is our repayment capacity. But in India, when the balance sheet of India was given to the World Bank or the international financial institutions, they found that a large chunk of money was going towards what is called as pension. Paying people money after they retire for not working, or for working before, we pay them later too. Okay, the concept which the West never understood, or the international financial institution never understood. And now we have also been, because of the developments that have happened in the medical field, the life expectancy also improved. More people living after retirement for a long period of time, which means there is a huge money going into non-developmental expenses called pension. So the international body said, unless you stop pension, we won't fund you for any of the development projects for India. Okay, but we decided we will stop pension, but we have created another one wherein it will be contributory pension. So I'm only trying to say, even if international organizations try to control us financially, the ultimate decision of whether to have pension or to have not to pension is with the Indian government. So we still remain sovereign at that point of time. We have been socialist, but we have been moving towards liberalism post 1991, but with an emphasis on welfare scheme for the needy too. We have not totally become a capitalist. We still are catering to the needy, the poor, the tribe, the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and so on. So we are still a socialist nation. Secularism, yes, there are a lot of challenges that have come in spite of so many secular principles that India want to have. After certain governments that have come to power in the center, we are facing certain amount of challenges to secularism. We'll see that later. Democracy, yes. Democracy always goes with the principle of majority, but not necessarily all majority opinions are always right. The minority also needs a voice. The minority also needs to be heard. It cannot become a tyranny of majority. Okay, so the democratic principle that we have in India is also allowing a positive discrimination where minority rights are also mentioned in Article 29 and 30. Okay, I would also say that where I come from, Madras Christian College, the name itself says it's a Christian institution established for the protection of minorities and to serve the minority community, as Christianity is a minority religion. Your college, I think, should also be registered under the minority rights under Article 29 and 30. Okay. Republic, we have no problems. The President of India is the first man of the nation. Okay. Then we move on to the main part of preamble, where it talks about trying to achieve justice. Justice at the social level. Justice at the social level is a huge, social justice is a very, very, very big topic. Okay. We have tried to abolish, Article 17 tries to abolish Varna system that divided people by birth. There are a lot of social justice with regarding to female suppression. Okay. Especially in India, we had the sati, we had the female infanticide, we had specific female abortion, female babies abortion, honor killing. Okay, a lot of things have happened with regarding to, and we have created umpteen number of acts, anti-dowry acts, anti-sati act. Okay, we have created all. Constitution has created all these things for us, by which we are trying to achieve social justice, but we are still struggling with certain disabilities. We have not had, every bus and every train is not. There is no social justice because it's not equally available. Okay, for the physically handicapped, child labor, tribal rights, we are still a long way to go with regarding to achieving social justice, especially with regarding to healthcare. We have a long way to go with, because sometimes the cost of health is so very high that the rich are able to afford the best medical care, and the poor are at the mercy of government hospitals. We know the conditions of them. Some are good, some are, but still, healthcare is not equal for all. Even with regarding to distance, how many people have died while traveling from a village to the town for medical care? Okay, transportation facilities for healthcare. So many. We are still a long way, but whatever it is, we have done. We have been able to do a lot of justice with regarding to untouchability, women empowerment, equal justice for women. So we are, to an extent, progressing much better than expected. Economic side, yes, equal pay for equal work itself is a great achievement. Women and men are paid, but there are unorganized sector like the civil work, construction sites, where women are definitely paid lesser, but they seem to be doing more hard work than the men who claim to be skilled labor. Okay, we are still not able to achieve that, but we have achieved minimum wages act equally for both men and women. Right to work we are not able to achieve, but we have still achieved Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, by which at least we are able to provide right to work for 100 days, which is a very, very good thing from Indian point of view, because it involves a lot of money to pay this. Okay. Political, yes, to an extent, all of us can contest elections, all of us can vote within the eligibility norms, yes, but we also have to understand that our democracy is a partyocracy, in the sense that party dominates. Most of the time, the government is formed as party, not as individuals. So we can all contest elections, but you cannot do certain things because your system is a party-based system. We move on to liberty. Liberty, wherein Constitution Preamble talks about thought and expression, but we have also seen, yes, we have the freedom to write, a lot of things that we are able to do now. But with the growth of social media, we have also had acts like Section 66A of Information Technology Act of 2000, which is trying to suppress the freedom of thought and expression too, which has been a controversial thing. But otherwise, with the growth, a large growth in terms of social media and internet and other things, blogging and all this, freedom of speech and expression, the amount of memes that we get every day, the amount of TikToks that we see every day, is a sign of liberty of thought and expression. Okay. Yes, there have been certain instances of high-handedness, government trying to, police taking law and order to suppress certain expressions against certain political leaders. Yes, this is. But on the whole, we have been given, we are enjoying a lot of thought and expression with freedom. Belief, faith, and worship. Yes, it has always been a controversial thing for us. Even a few months back, Uttar Pradesh enacted a law to regulate religious conversions and prohibit certain types of religious conversions. Okay, it is still not an individual freedom. Different governments have been trying to control the belief system, the faith that I want to practice, and the worship thing. That different. We are at the mercy of certain governments and certain political parties who, based on their ideologies and not on the basis of the Constitution. Constitution gives us the freedom of belief, faith, and worship, but this is being regulated for certain in the name of conversions or forced conversions or inducement to converse, and all these things are happening in India. Okay, equality. Definitely, Varna system is abolished. Abolished, but there are stray cases of practice here and there. But the practice is punishable offense. We have also been able to, in spite of equality, we are also providing positive discrimination, enhancing women empowerment, protection of women, special benefits for women, child protection. So the status, to an extent, we have achieved. Opportunity, jobs for all is also there. Fraternity, yes, definitely. More and more, India is part of the human rights, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So the dignity of individual is always protected. India also wants to promote human rights in India. We signed when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was formed. India is part of it, and it promotes human rights as. So we have also moved to an extent of even providing LGBT rights, as you know, the dignity of the individual. We have moved on to the normal gender classification, the third gender classification too, that we also give them the right. Okay, and unity and integrity of India. Okay, so that's with regarding to the preamble, how much it is still relevant to India. And we move on to the fundamental rights. In the fundamental rights, we have to understand not only those rights that we enjoy, all these things, the right to equality, the 7 or the 6 freedoms that we enjoy, we also see prisoners' rights, growth of prisoners' rights. Gone are those days when we condemn prisoners as criminals, antisocial. We have gone to see the rationality, and now we see that they are also human beings. They are not criminals by birth. They become criminals because of the situations. But they are also human beings. So even if he is a prisoner, they should be treated as a human being. So there's a lot of growth. Education has now become a fundamental right. At least the primary education. If not, we cannot afford the higher education. At least right to education at the primary level we have achieved, which is a wonderful thing. But one of the negative things that has happened, or the good thing that we can happen, it has both sides, is by 44th Amendment, we abolish the right to property, which is part of the fundamental rights. The question that immediately comes to us is, if fundamental rights is the most sacred part of the Constitution, it is the Bible of the Indian Constitution, and if one right can be removed, can all rights be removed? But right to property was definitely removed because of the Jamindari system, the landlords, the feudalism that we practiced, because of which bonded labor came into existence. Okay, so with that in the mind, right to property was abolished so that people could come out of the economic bondage because of the excess property that Jamindars had. But again, Supreme Court, as a guardian of the Constitution, has very clearly said the Parliament can remove the right to property from the Constitution, but it's also said that Parliament, just because they have been given the power by the Constitution, the power to amend, does not mean the Parliament can amend as whatever it likes. So judiciary, as the guardian of the constitution, came out with a basic structure that they cannot alter certain basic structure that is found in the constitution, and they identified a lot of things in the basic structure and put a restriction on the parliament that certain things from the constitution can never be touched by the parliament, in spite of it being the legislative body and has the power to amend the constitution. So these are good signs that we find in India. Okay. So from fundamental rights, we move to the next one is the constitutional bodies. There are umpteen number of constitutional bodies that we find in the constitution. India is an illiterate country. One of the problems with India was illiteracy, and we never wanted people to be exploited. So the constitution became bulkier with 395 articles. One of the reasons, because every institution is mentioned here, every organization is mentioned here, and their functions and powers are also mentioned so that it will not be violated. Okay, so all these organizations are functioning well. We have umpteen number of times you have seen the CAG coming out with political corruption, scams, all the scams that become, whether it's a BOFA scam or any kind of scam, it all is identified by the controller. So it's a very good system that it's functioning well. Constitutional bodies, election commission, the way it conducts people like sorry, I'm not getting the name. Union Public Service Commission, the civil servants who are the backbone of the TN Session, the election commissioner, transformed the election commission. Okay. Union Public Service Commission, the backbone which produces all the civil servant, backbone of the administration, Finance Commission which plans the finances of this thing. But the main problem will be between the executive, legislature, and the judiciary, the main organ of the government, wherein we find in India, because we have a parliamentary democracy and not a presidential democracy, all our the executive are from the legislature. So they're almost the same. Every minister who is an executive is a member of is an MP in the parliament. So these two are together, leaving the judiciary low. We still have balance of power, we have division of power, but it's still, this is the problem that we have. So judiciary has claimed judicial review power that it will always nullify any law that is contrary to the constitution, the spirit of the constitution. As the guardian of the constitution, it has exercised the judicial power in restraining legislature, the Parliament of India, not to violate the Constitution of India or to even change or amend. Article 368 gives the power of amendment to the Parliament of India, but again, that it cannot. And everything is tested to the fundamental rights, part 3 of the Constitution, the Bible of the Constitution. So there is always a constant struggle that is going on between the parliamentary democracy versus judicial independence. Judiciary will always try to be independent. We will always say the judiciary has to be independent so that it should not be interfered from, or it should avoid political interference. Okay? But so Parliament will always say we are the people who represent the people and we know what the people wants. Judiciary will say no, 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 no. India was founded on this principle, this preamble, this vision, and that we are the guardian. So there will be a constant this thing, and in the process we have been doing well that the constitution is never marginalized. So we move on to from the constitutional bodies into the directive principles, a very, very unique feature from India, which we borrowed from the Constitution of Ireland. Okay. So I'm only trying to highlight, this was proposed for future state governments and Indian governments in the year 1949 and was implemented in 1950. How many things that we have implemented? Minimum Wages Act, Child Labor Prohibition Act, Code of Wages 2020, maternity benefits for women. Now we have paternity benefit too. Equal Remuneration Act that brought salaries for women and men the same. To promote cottage industries, we have got plenty of acts with regarding Handle Board, Handicrafts Board, Coir Board, Silk Board, so on. Rural Development Program in 1968, Jawahar Roger Yojana. All these have come in. Forest policy to preserve the protection forests, sustainable part of the Sustainable Development Goals. The Second Amendment, you all know, we have added these three with regarding to legal aid, free legal aid to the poor, participation of workers in the management to improve the environment. 44th Amendment removed the right to property. Panchayat Raj system that we enjoy now is part of the 73rd Constitutional Amendment. So this is basic. All these have been incorporated from Directive Principles. Your Panchayat Raj is a Gandhian principle. The 73rd Amendment, we were able to implement it in the year 1992. 86th Amendment brought right to education. Article 45 of the Directive Principles implemented. It's now a fundamental right. It's no more a policy. It is no more a principle. It is a policy. Cooperative Societies 43B, 97th Amendment. So we have umpteen number of directive principles, which were principles have been made into rights now, made into law. I also want to slightly touch upon the states. Okay, states do also function within the constitutional framework. How far the states have been functioning? I'm only giving you some statistics with regarding to 2020. Okay. This is how the states have been functioning, making laws for the, especially in the area of health. In 2020, COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of states amended the Epidemic Diseases Act of 1897. Many states promulgated ordinances. Tamil Nadu passed a law for appointment of government jobs to candidates who studied in Tamil medium and primary school to standard 10. Kerala passed a law that seeks to protect the rights of the deceased to be buried in Christian cemeteries or parishes to which they belong. So, transfer of payment, electronic transfer of payment by many states, not to go and pay in a bank. See, Parliament always refers to standing committees because not all members have awareness with regarding to a particular bill. Kerala, states normally don't do it because they go by the majority. They go to the legislature, MLAs vote because the leader of the political party or the ruling party has said, tomorrow our bill is coming, just say yes. Very good thing about Kerala government is that they constituted 14 subject committees to examine bills last year alone, 2020. Very good sign that the states are following the practices that's adopted by the, suggested by the constitution or the provisions. So many states also followed ad hoc committees before they actually create, because very easy for them with a large majority in the legislature, it's very easy to pass a law without even discussion because the opposition is very small in number and we operate on the basis of majority. Okay. The next 3 slides will be with regarding to the Supreme Court acting to protect the Constitution. Our Constitution is still relevant because of the role of the Supreme Court as the guardian of the Constitution. Constitution is still powerful. Constitution as the law of the land is still supreme. And this has been so in spite of the parliamentary democracy that we still have. We believe in parliamentary democracy, and at the same time we don't want the parliament to make certain things that will because of the majority they can become authoritarian, and we don't want that to happen. And Supreme Court, so with regarding to LGBT rights, Supreme Court, it is a voice of the minority. What I'm trying to say is, most of the time, Constitution is a voice of the majority. Constitution also provides rights for the minorities, protective, positive discrimination. Okay, but here, Supreme Court affirm the rights of the LGBT minorities and other vulnerable groups. Okay, and it is trying to maintain the institutional supremacy. If Supreme Court does not prove its supremacy or the judicial independence, Constitution is in trouble. Okay, this is what Arundhati Kadju, after the Johar verdict, said: the difficulty of channeling concerns of unpopular minorities, because it's not a popular thing with regarding to gay rights and LGBT rights. It's not a very unpopular, it's a small minority. But the Supreme Court gave a verdict in favor of them. Historic ruling that happened in 2018. So we are always struggling. There are two moves that I'm talking of here is the constitutional morality, and we counter majoritarianism. Okay, and all these are tested against fundamental rights. Okay, usually every law is tested against fundamental rights. If it is against fundamental rights, we say no. But now the Supreme Court is also moving towards constitutional morality, and they are also trying to counter majoritarianism. Okay, this is the character that is changing. So this is how the Constitution becomes relevant. There is a constant check to judicial autonomy. As soon as BJP won in the year 2014, one of the strongest moves that the government wanted to was to create a National Judicial Appointments Commission and to decide, that's the 99th Amendment, and to make judicial appointment political. Okay, by which judiciary will lose its judicial autonomy or independence. And so Supreme Court was strong against any kind of encroachment on its powers and its independence. So this is what is the problem, what we are going through now. The doctrine of constitutional morality and the court as a counter majoritarianism. Just because a majority wants something, it cannot be forced. Okay, that is the most important thing that we are this thing. So the last point, that's what I've written. The doctrine of constitutional morality is an emphatic guarantee that the Supreme Court of India is committed to protecting all minorities, despite opposition from majoritarian governments. Okay, the minority cannot be suppressed at any point of it. So it's a very good sign on the part of the Supreme Court. So this is what, as a Kerala, because I'm speaking to a group of Kerala people, I thought this could be the doctrine of constitutional morality has led the Supreme Court to strike down a ban against women entering Sabarimala temple in Kerala. Very simple morality. If men can enter, women should be able to enter. As simple as that. Okay, it's a constitutional morality by which women were given the access to Sabarimala temple. Okay, I'm not going into the religious or the other aspect. This is on one side of the Supreme Court. But now you find the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley talking like this. Okay, he says if judiciary is opposing a law of the parliament, he calls it as tyranny of the unelected. The members of the judiciary are not elected by the people. Okay, they are not elected by the people. So he says it's a tyranny of the unelected. If the majority party wants to do something, the ruling party wants to do something, how can judiciary, which is an unelected body, control? Okay, he feels if democracy is in danger, if the elected people's voice is undermined. This is what we are going through a struggle now, right now, that they claim in democracy, whatever the ruling party wants should happen, should prevail. Okay, they claim that the unelected judiciary cannot dictate to a ruling government. Okay, this is what we are going through. Okay. Civil society in India is not every time. See, in Tamil Nadu, I don't know if you know about the Jallikattu struggle. How many times have people come to the Marina Beach in Tamil Nadu, in Chennai, as a mass group, as a civil society, to fight against the government. Not every time. We don't have that time. Civil society in India is not very strong. For example, farmer struggle is again an extraordinary thing. 1 year of struggle and it is now been withdrawn. Okay, not every time for every issue we find people, civil society coming together and going against. So that is where we depend upon the independent judiciary for the constitution to become relevant every second for us. Rajya Sabha now actually passed a bill to restore the power of the state governments to identify socially, economically backward castes by the states, okay, which is again a good sign. Okay, now I'm trying to conclude. Definitely, Constitution of India is a lawyer's paradise. We can interpret as we like. Whatever said and done, Constitution is a sign of civilized life. Constitution treats everyone equally. Center is definitely made strong in India to keep us together. We will still have the struggle between the fundamental rights, the social good and the individual good and the common good. Life and liberty of the individual will be at the mercy of the executive government, but the judicial system will definitely help us. There are safeguards for minority and social and educationally backward people. This I've already spoken. Reservation has become a permanent feature. Initially, Constitution said reservation is only for 20 years, and now it's become more populist vote bank. There has also emerged a very parallel system in India where Constitution has succeeded in creating an environment where ethics is privileged and the socio-political forces are weakening its foundations. Okay. Definitely misuse of emergency provisions. Constitution provides for emergency provision between Article 352 to 360. More than 100 times, democratically elected governments have been dismissed. Okay, misuse of emergency provision. Constitution is good. The intention of having emergency provision was only to implement it for extraordinary situations. Only when the law and order fails in a state. But many times it has been used politically, misused. More than 100 times. This will be, this is how, as long as human beings and human nature, this seems to be, but the Constitution is not at fault. So, only two things that I want to give it to you. This document, one of the most precious documents that we have in front of us, our Constitution, is relatively very, very unknown to the citizens. We as citizens of India do not know our constitutions. So for me, it's so nice. I want to congratulate each one of you that you are able to celebrate Constitution Day. And we are becoming aware of, but you still don't know what is inside the Constitution. So I think it's high time that we all are aware of our Constitution, whether you are a student of physics or chemistry or botany, not necessarily political science students. We are governed as in the Constitution. You should understand here, most of us do not even know because you think these are not for me. No. If you're from a rural background, you should understand that the Constitution and the government, the state interferes in your life even before you're born. Even before you're born. If you're from a village, the pregnant mothers are given a nutritious ball. In the sense, it has the food ball actually contains minerals, proteins for the child, for you as a child, as a baby, inside the womb of the mother, and also the iron content for the mother to withstand the delivery. You understand? So the government actually, the welfare program of parliamentary democracy starts even before a person is born. And after he or she is born, it provides a hospital to be born, a school to study, a college to study, a place to work, a spouse to marry, children, a house, register. You can register your property, you can buy property. Then when a person dies, the government also provides a place for the body to be buried, a tomb to be built. You know, the constitution actually takes care of the person in the name of welfare from the womb to the tomb. That is the scope of the constitution. Many times we don't even feel that it is because of these constitutional provisions that we are all enjoying this life. A very civilized life. The womb to tomb concept. Even before you're born, even when you're in the womb of the mother. And after, for a person close to you to come and cry and put flowers on your tomb. That is the provision that the constitution provides for. Okay, and there is always, we will have, that's where I said it's a lawyer's paradise. There is always a problem for us with regarding to the interpretation with regarding to constitution and the constitutional construction. Okay, the lawyers survive basically by interpreting this way and that way so that they can win a case. That is always a problem. But the first thing is we should know our rights. We should know our constitution for the benefit of not only for us. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie J Beam that came very recently, which is also in the controversy also. You know, there are people who still don't know their rights. They don't know how to get a citizenship, how to get a voter ID, how to get an Aadhaar card. They are not even in the roles of the Indian government, Indian society. You understand? Unless we know as literate population, we are a small minority of educated people. If we do not know our constitution and our rights, how do we help others getting their fundamental rights restored? Or how do we make them as citizens of the nation who do not even have an Aadhaar card or a ration card or a election voter ID or whatever it is, citizenship card. So with that, I would like to thank every one of you for your patient listening. And that's the sources that I talked about. And wish you all a civilized life as law-abiding citizens. And God bless you.
Thank you, sir, for providing your most valuable insights. Now we move forward to the question and answer session. Dear participants, you can ask your questions now.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
What is the importance of fraternity in the preamble of the Indian Constitution?
Fraternity is brotherhood. You don't have to take it from the literal sense. I already told you we have we claim ourselves to be unity in diversity. We don't see Jaria, you will claim you are a Keralite and I will claim I'm a Tamilian. You understand? But are we going to see us as an Indian? That we are part of it. Okay. The fraternity that we see, the constitutional or the founding fathers want to see each of us not as rivals. See, the simple lingual issue, the language issue, the states were divided in India. It was not for administrative purpose that we have divided India into states. You know, 1956, we divided India on the basis of language. Every time we see ourselves from different, from others. The fraternity concept is mainly to see each one of us as an Indian citizen. Because that's where I said we have a lot of baggage with us. By religion, by culture, our eating habits. I'm saying we don't see each other. So how do we see each other That is what we are trying to promote. That is where the word fraternity that we are talking of, somewhere we'll have to see us. If you go to the Northeast, they still don't feel part of India, because either we have treated them stepmotherly or because of the looks. If you go to suppose by God's grace you pass an entrance exam or you become a civil servant, you go to Delhi, even as an IAS officer, you are still now, after 70 years of independence, you are still looked as a Madrasi, not even as a Kerala. They see themselves as Aryan and we are Dravidians and all these things. And that is where we are talking of the racial difference, the language barrier, all this. That is where the word fraternity, that we all have to see ourselves as Indian. That's the idea, Jani. Hope I've answered you.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
My name is Setu Lakshmi. I am
Yes.
a first year BE economics student.
Yes.
And first of all, I would like to thank you for this wonderful session. I enjoyed it very much as a lover of this political science discipline. The class was very informative and I enjoyed it very much. So I have two questions from my side. The first one is that it's about transgenders. They are now identified as third genders, right?
Yes.
But they are still treated differentially at some situations. Are they getting enough rights?
Okay. What's your second
That's
question?
The second question is related to.
Now, what is the first question that you're talking of?
It's about transgenders. What I'm asking is that are they getting enough rights?
See, the aspect that you're talking of, that is where I was thinking. See, this is what I also talked about, the majoritarianism. Okay. Will your father and mother accept a transgender in your house? This is the social issue, not the political issue. On the political side, we have achieved to an extent to treat them as a third gender because it is not their fault. By birth, they belong to a third gender, which we never recognized earlier. And now we are talking of more people are also willing to talk, or openly we have now come to a stage where people are claiming that I'm a gay by birth. I'm a lesbian by birth. I'm a transgender by birth. Okay, what can we do? But the society never accepted it. When they came of a particular age and when they realized that they were neither male or female, the society could not accept, the parents could not accept. Okay, but now the government, the political sphere, they've accepted as a human being. It's part of the growth of the human rights, saying that they are also another gender. Let's treat them as another gender. We will also reserve them in terms of employment and other things. But the problem would be, how many of us are willing to accept them? Will you be able to employ them if you are an employer, will you be able to employ them in your factory? This is the problem. So we have still a very, very long way. Political achievement or a lawmaking does not mean that we have achieved sociologically also. Imagine we have abolished sati, one of the most inhuman practice in India, way back in 1940s. Okay, in 1990 in Uttar Pradesh, sati was practiced. Imagine female infanticide is still happening in large parts of Tamil Nadu, large parts of India. Female babies are considered to be a burden. It's still happening. But when did the laws come? 1950, we have brought abortion laws. On one side, there is a political achievement. On the other side, it depends upon the society how much it absorbs and practices. And that's where one slide I quote, India is a society that is immersed in customs and tradition. wherein these are more powerful than. How many marriages in India, there is no dowry? Dowry was abolished in 50s. And we are still practicing 60 years later. Okay, in some form or other, saying that it's good for the boy and the girl. And it's always the girl's side which is giving the dowry, not the boy's side. If both of them, both the parents give the boy and the girl some amount, whatever they have, it's demanded. And the parents are forced to take loans to settle. Okay, so definitely transgender in terms of politically we have achieved, but we have a long way to go for a social acceptance. That is where the difference is still there. Hope I've answered correctly.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So my next question is about the LGBTQ community. It's related. So many countries have now legalized their marriage. That is the marriage of homosexual couples. And the verdict of Supreme Court on 6 September 2008 also ruled out the unconstitutionality of the Section 377. It is unconstitutional, right? And we are still, the government is still fighting a case regarding this legalizing the homosexual couples.
Yes.
So what is your take on that?
Personally, my opinion is very, very different from that, because I also have certain traditions and customs. I'm from my religion. All these things will play a major role in deciding about this, whether gay marriages is accepted or not. But what we are fighting now, as a Christian or as a follower of a particular religion, I may not prefer because it is not accepted. But the problem would be in a secular country, there will be certain kind of rights that are coming. We are also under pressure from the international community that India should be able to adopt it as part of human rights. This is the growth of human rights that are happening. You understand? See, for example, Sethu Lakshmi, you have a earring. You wear earrings, Sethu Lakshmi?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And when was this ear, what is that? You pierced the ear. When did this happen?
After 28 days of my birth.
And do we call your father as one of those, a Hitler kind of a dictator, a monster kind of a person who took a hot iron rod, he took an iron rod, sharp iron rod, put it in the iron and years of a girl child.
Exactly, no,
we
sir.
don't have the habit. Huh? I didn't get you, Sidhu.
No, sir. I just said.
Imagine every father and mother is enjoying to pierce, your babies, 30-year-old baby, so fresh with an iron rod, hot iron rod. Now there are a lot of technology that has come about with gunshots and things like that. But imagine those days when girl children alone were pierced, ears were pierced, for the parents to enjoy wearing some of this thing. If you do it after 18 years of age, when you are treated as an adult and you want to pierce your ear, is different. But how cruel it is to pierce with a hot iron rod. These are customs now. In India, we have a lot of customs and traditions, which sometimes are more. And if tomorrow, suppose I file a case against your father saying that it's one of the inhuman act, how dare you, put a hole in the ear of Sethu Lakshmi? Will it be accepted? It will take a long time for us to accept. Parents do not have the habit of piercing Very rarely we come across boys being pierced, but most of the girls are pierced by the parents. Is it an inhuman thing? So likewise, LGBT and other things will also have its own implications. The social side on one thing which is being compelled, the international compulsions to accept, make it into a law. That is what Indian government is yielding now more. But there is always a social pressure because you're not able to understand what a man when a man marries, when a woman marries. Our society has still not grown to the extent of accepting certain things. When children ask, you may not understand. Because we are always used to saying that women become pregnant and they become mother and deliver. So what happens here? We have still not been able to accept, adoption of children. A lot of things now. We are still a very, very traditional society. We are developing. We have borrowed a lot of Western principles, but these are things which are very, very, very strong in our society. That is where the problem is. But the government is under pressure to make certain things because there is an international pressure to give them individual rights as gays. And that is what is actually happening in India.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Sir,
Yes, Anjana.
good evening. My name is Anjana Sadish and I am from first year BA Economics.
Yes.
Before moving to the question, thank you so much for this wonderful session. I also enjoyed it very much. So my question is that the Constitution guarantees us with many fundamental rights, right? So,
Yes.
and they are not absolute. The state can put reasonable restrictions over our rights. So, what I felt recently is that this provision is sometimes arbitrarily used by the government, and that is putting many restrictions over our rights. So, sometimes unreasonably. Sir, what's your take on that?
No, as long as human beings are there, the governments will restrict certain amount of fundamental rights for their own benefit. And that is where I said the Supreme Court is always there. But it's a sad thing that when the government, which is supposed to protect our fundamental rights, are removing our fundamental rights. Okay? See, right to demonstration is there. 19 clause 1B. You understand? But the problem is when demonstration happen, the government uses police to lathi charge people. You understand? So you have to go to the court for restoration. Yes, no right is absolute. Rights, you and I cannot misuse our rights. So there are constitutional provisions by which we not only enjoy rights, but we also know where our rights will be curtailed. Reasonable restriction. But the only problem is to power, they feel their ideological background. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm sorry. The ideological this thing, they may not want to give us certain rights. See, Congress government, which wrote the Constitution, at one point they removed the right to property because they saw a lot of violations because of excess property, bonded labor, forced labor, all that happened because of that. So they wanted to remove, which is a reasonably justifiable removal of a fundamental right. But there are other cases where you on one side that you have freedom of speech and expression. I told you section 66 of IT Act of 2000 is trying to restrict our freedom. When you write on a social media, government comes and arrests the person. So definitely Supreme Court as a guardian is there to protect us. So this will constantly be there, definitely.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir.
So I just want to add one more point to the Anjana, to your this thing. On one side, we will have individual good, what you think is right. On the other side, the state will always see from the common good point of view. So that is where you strike a balance. And that's why sometimes we feel our fundamental rights are violated by the state. So the state will always have common good, more people good in their mind rather than individual good. That's where we feel our rights are violated. Yes. I'm sorry, Shirin. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please.
I have an issue. Good evening, sir. I am Shirin from second year history. Sir, my question is, what is the main difference between judicial review and judicial activism?
Judicial review power is very simple. The name itself says the power of the judiciary to review any law passed by the parliament. Okay, so every time a law comes out of parliament, the judiciary has the power to see whether it is violating the fundamental rights. If it is violating the fundamental rights, then that law will be declared null and void. That is the power of the judiciary. And that it does as the guardian of the constitution. So otherwise, if every parliament comes in and tries to change the entire constitution, then what will happen to all of us? We cannot be at the mercy of the parliamentarians. So the judiciary takes in its power, saying that the power of the judiciary to review and to declare a law dead. This will never become a law. As simple as that. Okay, so that's a power. But judicial activism is much more than this. Okay, judiciary is supposed to play its role, but there is always a negative side and a positive side to judicial activism. Okay, so there are times when, see, for example, I don't know whether you know about the Vishaka case. Okay. Vishaka case is something where workplace harassment. Women are working and men are always the bosses and they exploit them. Physically, mental abuse always happens. The governments have not taken any kind of role to make anything, to protect the women from harassment. Especially with regard to, we have female infanticide, anti-abortion laws, anti-Sati Act, everything. But in terms of domestic violence, in terms of workplace violence, violence not necessarily always in terms of physical, mental abuse, okay, sexual abuse, you don't have any provisions. So judiciary, when Vishaka filed a case, then judiciary came out and said, state government, make this into a law, wherein workplace harassment against women cannot happen, and I'm giving you 1 week time to make it into a law to protect the women. On one side, you say women empowerment. When women come to work, there are men abusing them badly. And how can you keep quiet? So judiciary suddenly becomes active and says and plays the role of parliament, makes a law to protect the women. See, LGBT rights, parliament never came out with this. Judiciary became active to create, said LGBT rights should be provided. And the parliament is now working on it. Judiciary is suddenly active, not deciding whether, otherwise judiciary should only play, this is correct law, this is bad law. Here there are two parties in conflict, this party wins, this party loses. This should be the role. Judiciary is becoming more proactive now. On the failure of the parliament, judiciary is becoming active, crossing the boundary of only judicial role into lawmaking role. Many times judiciary had to do it because the failure on the part of the government to protect its people. And that is what is judicial activism. But parliament will say they cannot come into our role. Yes. But the public supports the judiciary when judiciary sometimes become active. But there is always a negative side to it also, by which when judiciary tries to force to do certain things, it is considered to be wrong. But there are many times that judiciary has played a very active role and fulfilling the necessity where the executive and the legislature has miserably failed. And that is what we call it as judicial activism. But definitely the executive and the legislature will always fight, saying that judiciary should not interfere in our role. We will decide everything. But we have moved into a stage where, see, for example, for the first time when judicial, a person in a jail was tortured by the warden. Okay? So, this person is uneducated. I've done a crime. This person has done a crime. He accepts what he did was wrong. So, he is punished and he's in the jail. But the warden tortures him every day physically. The pain and the agony that he went through, he took a postcard and wrote Chief Justice of India, New Delhi, and in that he wrote, "Save me from warden's torture." That's all. Normally, to go to a court, there is a big process. You have to file a case, you have to you have to pay certain amount of money to the court, register a complaint, a lawyer has to be hired, all these, nothing done. A postcard suddenly became a case. Chief Justice of India takes up the case, Sunil Batra case. You know, this is what is activism. He could have simply not listened or thrown the postcard, or he could have said, somebody file a case, come through the process. No, nothing. The case came, judicial. And now he orders, no case, nothing. He orders that warden to be punished or arrested. No case. Judiciary is now active, arresting the policeman. The police is expected to arrest somebody. Now the police is being arrested. You know, these are all the cases of activism, public interest litigation cases. Earlier, we were in a situation where only if I am affected, I can file a case. But now, the public does not even know, there are many public, that they have a right. Somebody in the public who is interested in this person can file a case. Judicial activism. Judiciary now accepts cases from anybody in the interest of public. And judiciary now says, legislature, make this into a law. Executive, do this immediately. I'm giving you 1 week time to do it. That is what is judicial activism. I hope you understood, Children.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
I'm Shaheen Aras from Second Year Base Study Department.
Yeah.
So my question is, why is it important for countries to have sovereignty?
I didn't understand the question.
Why is it important for countries to have sovereignty?
For a country to have sovereignty?
Yes, sir, yes.
Yeah, well, sovereignty is supposed to be, the concept of sovereignty is supposed to be into two. One is the within the country, internal and external. Internally, we have to be supreme. Okay, a country has to be supreme. So, how does India become supreme over its subjects? Internally, the Constitution of India. Constitution of India is applicable to the entire people of India, and so nobody is above the law. So, India is supreme or sovereign at the domestic level within India. But externally, we cannot be supreme over other nations. But we have to be independent of other nations. If America is going to dictate how we should live, if Europe is going to decide what kind of life we will live, then we are not able to decide our own future. So that is what is sovereignty all about. So internally supreme and externally independent. That is what is the concept of sovereignty. Sovereignty does not mean that we boss over everybody every time. No. It is not that. There are 250 countries. You have your own life, I will have our own. I won't interfere in that. But we can mutually do trade, to do business, we can do all these. All these is possible. But you cannot interfere in my domestic affairs. As simple as that. But there will be definitely pressure, but there is also independence. We have an independent decision to make. See, every time there is a war in the Middle East, US sends its F-16 planes to support one country in the Middle East. When Iraq bombed Kuwait, America wanted to support Kuwait. Okay, every time it happens, but every time a Middle East happens, America will request India to refuel the planes because they cannot go directly there. They have to. The planes have a limited fuel capacity. India will be asked to refuel the planes. But India is a nation where Gandhi was born. We believe in non-violence. So we said we will not give fuel for planes that are going into war with another country. We have stood our stand. We are independent. When Kuwait was released from Iraq forces, Saddam Hussein and all that, we know Kuwait was demolished and the entire Kuwait will have to be reconstructed. And when you reconstruct Kuwait, we are looking in terms of $40,000 crore construction and developmental process. We know that India may not get contract because India did not support US. But still, we took a stand saying that we will not, on principle, support anything to do with war. That is what is sovereignty all about. We make our own stance. So whether on any issue for that matter, whether it is a sustainable development goals that are set by United Nations or gender rights or human rights, we have our own way of dealing with things. We don't allow international forces to come into certain parts of India because we want our own freedoms. We want our own sovereignty. We don't allow them to interfere. Yes. Yes, Shahid.
Thank you, sir.
Got it. Yes.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, Nora.
Good evening, sir. I am Ram Bakar from second year BA History. My question is Anglo-Indian removed in Parliament and statewide.
The voice was not clear.
Sir, I have a range issue. I
Yeah.
will comment it in the chat box.
Okay. The other person? Somebody else asked a question.
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
I'm Shamsia. I'm first year BA Economics student.
Yeah.
My question is, judiciary is independent of executive, right?
Yeah.
But there has been so much criticism when former Chief Justice Rajan Gogi has been nominated as a member of Rajya Sabha. Is such matters against the principle laid down by Constitution?
What is the last line you asked?
Is such matters against the principle laid down by Constitution?
Constitution overall prescribes policies and structures, but the sad thing is that Chief Justice appointing a political appointment, accepting a political appointment is morally wrong. Definitely morally wrong. We could still argue on this. You know Manmohan Singh?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Manmohan Singh was the Reserve Bank governor. So definitely as the governor of Reserve Bank, he will have access to prime ministers and presidents of nations because they are the people who run the Indian finance. Okay. So when Manmohan resigned, we made him the prime minister of the nation because he was the wonderful economist. That is where we made him the Congress made him. So when Manmohan Singh was made in as the Prime Minister of the nation to run the country, the argument would be, why not Ranjan Gogoi, who was the Chief Justice, who had done so much of wonderful judicial verdicts that he has given, why can't he be given the berth on Rajya Sabha? Simply because of his contributions in terms of judiciary and lawmaking. That would be. But in this context, there is a lot of political agenda behind. There's a lot of cases that he dealt, which was in favor of BJP, and that is where we all make a hue and cry. So on principle, it is wrong. You understand? On principle, because of the background of this situation, we say definitely Ranjan Gogoi being given this opportunity is more political because the favors that he did. But the same thing can also be said with regarding to Manmohan Singh and Congress also. But definitely there, the Congress chose, because it was shock to the whole world when Manmohan Singh became the Prime Minister of India. But we were very clear. Congress was clear about this. Okay, I'm going into Noora Abu Bakr. Anglo-Indians removed in the parliament statewide. See, this is again a sociological issue that we had. Every time a foreign nation comes into another nation, there is a group of people that is born. Okay, Anglo-Indian is a byproduct of Britishers living in India and Indians and British having a children called Anglo-Indians. Okay, so the idea now is that there are no more original Anglo-Indians. These are, see, those days it was very, very unique because if they were particular, their mother tongue was English. If there was a British soldier and a Kerala woman, a child was born, the mother spoke Malayalam, the father spoke English, the child spoke these two. The culture was different. They had an English culture, especially in Tamil Nadu. If you see, we didn't even 30 years back, 20 years back, we never had even the culture of only cinema actors were supposed to wear lipstick. If a girl was wearing lipstick or applying lipstick, the parents used to even say, whom are you trying to attract? It was so bad. It was not the presentation of a girl it was seen as, why are you wearing all this? Why should you apply lipstick and go? Why this dark red color? We have moved a long way from that. But now we see at that point of time, the society could not accept, they were neither an Indian nor a British. And there was a huge amount of people. It's not, 200 years of rule of British. We had created millions of Anglo-Indians. And they were also human beings with a different mother tongue, with a different culture, which did not match with the Indian culture. And these people were not taken back to British also. They should have been taken to the Britain. They've been left here. And so we had made special provision even in the Constitution for Anglo-Indian representation. Now we feel 70 years later, there are no Anglo-Indians. Should they be given? And that is what is happening right now. That if there are no true Anglo-Indians, why should they be given a place? And that is the sociological problem. Very, very, but there is still, on the other side, there is still a lot of Anglo-Indians available in India who still have their own culture. They have their own culture. They want to preserve it. Every group wants to preserve their own culture. And so they still remain. Some of them have left. Some of them are still in India. And they still claim that this is a privilege, that the constitutional provision should not be denied. So that is the argument it's about, Noora. Have you got the answer, Noora? Hello? Thank you, Noora.
So I think this Q&A session is over.
Okay.
So now I would like to invite Ms. Gayatri Mugudan, Assistant Professor, Department of Human Resource Management, to deliver vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shaheen. Good evening to all. It's my pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks for this webinar organized by the Department of Political Science, Little Flower College, Guruvayoor, as part of the Constitution Day celebration. Let me start by giving glory to the Almighty God for making today's webinar a grand success. We are grateful to our beloved Principal, Dr.Sr.Valsa M A, for inaugurating this national webinar and for her constant support and encouragement. First and foremost, I thank our resource person, Dr.S.D.Christopher Chandran, Assistant Professor and HOD of Political Science, MCC Chennai, who has found time in his busy schedule to be main part of this national webinar on Indian Constitution evolution and its relevance in contemporary India. Thank you. During the past hour, he has enlightened us on how we have moved from the monarchy rule to being treated equal by the introduction of constitution or law. He explained on the historical background of the constitution, the political, social, economic, and ideological side. He explained the different aspects of how constitution evolved. He also explained on how relevant constitution is in contemporary India, based on the vision, fundamental rights, constitutional bodies, the directive principles, that is the vision of the future, the labor codes, and the state governments. Thank you, sir, for an engaging and informative session. My heartfelt thanks to all the heads and faculties of various departments for their contribution, guidance, and participation in this national webinar. We certainly owe special gratitude to Sister Timi Thomas, faculty of our Political Science Department, for organizing this national webinar, and the technical team for providing us hassle-free learning through this online platform. Last but not least, I thank all our students for their cooperation in joining this learning session and making it very interactive and a grand success. Thank you all for your attention. Happy learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss. Once again, thank you for sparing your precious time with us. We are winding up now. Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I too learned.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.